And the other thing I finished just like today, like an hour ago, was another I picked it up on a whim kind of situation, but it was a weaker whim, let's call it that. I had it on my radar for the past month or so because I have been planning to put up reads into the prompt list for the Transrise Readathon, which is happening at the end of the month. And I was just scrolling through the Storygraph challenge. I was looking at what other people added, and I found The Deep by Rivers Solomon. And it was such an intriguing concept, and also the way this book came to be, because it is inspired by a song from David Diggs. You know, Mr. Pimp Limp from Hamilton, that guy. So I, on a whim, picked up the book, and then on a whim decided today is the day I'm going to read it. Such a good decision. It's only 160-ish pages long, but it feels like a fully fleshed out novel, like a full book, because it is so well done. The pacing, the characters, the things that are happening in it. There's not a lot of plot going on. It is very much a novella you have to experience. Like, there's nothing, it's not like you are rooting for the characters to achieve their goal or anything. It's you are watching something happen, which in and of itself is perfect for what this book is about. So The Deep is inspired by a song that was inspired by a thing from a band from long, long ago, which were inspired by history, namely the history of the slave trade, where the slave traders would throw overboard people they couldn't use, you know, the weak, the infirm, the old, and sometimes they would throw over pregnant women. And the whole idea is that these pregnant women, after they were thrown overboard, still had their children, and their children were born as these underwater creatures. They were born to live underwater, away from everything else, and they built a whole society underwater. And we are following a character that is called a historian, because the society made it a cultural thing to don't remember the pain of the past. So everything bad that happens to these people is given to the historian, a singular person who is holding on to 600 years worth of memories, and everyone else is just forgetting. They just forget about everything in their past. Sometimes, like what happened last week, they just don't remember. The historian remembers for them. And once a year, I think, they share all of their memories with everyone else. So as a collective, these people still remember who they are, but then they just give it back. They remember for 3 days, and the historian has to remember for the rest of the time. So you can imagine that 600 years of hardship it's a lot of memories to take on. It's a lot of memories to hold on to. And our main character is, it's never outright stated because she is not human. So there is no concept for it, but she is very heavily implied to be autistic. So she suffers a lot under the weight of these memories, on top of all of her other sensory issues. And one day she decides, fuck it, and just fucks off. She's giving all of the memories back, and then she just fucks off. And then she does a little mermaid moment where she meets humans. She gets, like, she accidentally beaches herself, and she meets humans, and these humans help her, and she just starts talking to them and like kind of experiencing their worldview. And she learns, okay, you cannot exist with your history if it's 600 years boiled down to a singular person and no one else can comprehend what you remember, but it's also not okay to live without your history. And it's just this beautiful take on it all. By the end, everything is hunky-dory and everything is solved and stuff, but this focus on memory and one's own history, it's so well done. It's so well done. Again, there is no real plot to this whole thing. It's very much an experience you're having with these characters. It's so well done. I really enjoyed that one. And then, of course, I went in and listened to the song afterwards, and that song is also very much playing around with a lot of things. It's not a song you listen to, it is a performance. Like, I only listened to the song and, you know, I didn't see any of the performance. Listening to the song feels like this is something that needs to be performed on a stage. It's giving a musical version of Poetry Slam almost. Very well done, very well done. And it once again reminds me of the fact that I love the ocean. It is big, it is scary, and I love it. The Deep also got 4 stars from me. I'm reading good shit. Okay, so let me tell you about some reads I finished while I go get another coffee, because coffee's life, coffee's love. So I finished Witch Boy by... I only remember her last name because it's Ostertag, and I think that's kind of funny. And Witch Boy. Wow, this is like not working out. Let's put you up here, maybe? Okay, cool. Weird shot, but we're taking it. So Witch Boy is a middle grade graphic novel situation, and it's cute, I guess. I like the world building behind it. With like, okay, you have these, I guess, witch families, tribes, clans, whatever, and you have them living in like a little compound situation in the middle of nowhere where they are trained, because as children they are vulnerable because they don't have their powers yet. They have to learn, like they have to awaken for the boys, like the shape-shifting has to happen to them. Guess it's age 10 and up, where they have like this yearly ritual where they just go out and basically do a Pokemon to try and commune with an animal spirit that will then teach them how to shapeshift. It isn't quite clear if you only can have one form or multiple forms. That was kind of confusing, I guess. And the girls, they just basically go to school with grandma and learn different spells and shit. And we follow Aster. And Aster is kind of spying on the classes that the girls get, because he really, really wants to do magic. He wants to do witchery, it's what it's called, instead of shapeshifting, and he has never been successful with finding an animal spirit to do the shapeshifting in the first place. And again, he doesn't really want to anyway, so he's sitting in on the girls when they get their lessons, but every time he gets caught, he's like people are literally shouting at him to stop doing that, because it is apparently very dangerous if a boy who is supposed to be a shapeshifter learns witchery. And then they all give the weird example of like his grandpa, uncle, an old dude who was also interested in witchery and no one was teaching him, so he was like, haha, this is just gonna learn it myself, and then bad things happened. And people assume bad things happened because he was a shapeshifter who learned witchery. I can't explain more about it because that would be spoiled. So Aster is caught in this back and forth, like he wants to do the witchery thing, but he's not allowed. He's supposed to do the shapeshifting thing, but he can't do the shapeshifting thing. So at times he runs away, and one day he runs away and finds this girl, no witch whatsoever, just a normal girl, and she's just not bombarding him with philosophy things, life philosophy, but she gives him a new perspective that helps him figure out his own perspective. That was kind of cute. And yeah, there's not much to say about it. It's a cute story. It's told very quickly, given that it's a graphic novel, but there are 3 volumes to it. Like there are 2 more volumes, and I thought, okay, this is like told over the course of 3 volumes, but no, like this specific story is wrapped up in the first one, so it's very quick. But I liked it. I liked the colors. The colors were amazing, very fall-esque with a splash of color here and there. I like the colors. I like the art style. That was amazing. Like that demon thingy, that was kind of cool. Like it's somewhere between wolf and dragon. It's really cool. But yeah, I don't read a lot of middle grade, so I don't have too many opinions on that, but I liked Witch Boy. Witch Boy was good. I think I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, I gave it 4 stars with like the star footnote thing in there that I don't really read a lot of middle grade, so I don't have a lot to compare it to. I don't want to compare middle grade to anything for like older audiences, which I usually read, simply because that would be unfair. But for a middle grade, I think it's a very solid one. Given that this is a wrap up for the trans rights readathon though, I want to put another footnote in here. None of these characters are trans. It is very much just an allegory. Aster is a boy. He is supposed to be a shapeshifter, but he wants to do the witchery stuff because he can comprehend the witchery stuff easier than he can comprehend the shapeshifting thing. He very much goes by he, him throughout the whole thing. And there's no discovery, I'd rather be a girl. It's just, I'd rather be a witch. Which is very much copy and paste. Like, it is the trans experience, just with I guess in a different font. And the other read I finished was Oh Mycelium by someone. And honestly, that is also the vibe of the whole novella. So Oh Mycelium is a novella where we have a pig shifter lady, a human, and a non-binary / gender fluid / agender mushroom fairy? It's a whole thing. And this novella is just, I don't even know what to say about it because it's one of those nothing burgers. Like, the ideas behind it were great, and I think this would have done well as a fully fleshed out 300-page romance novel, but it is only 69 pages long, and that is kind of its downfall because it destroys the pacing. It does not give us enough time to develop the characters in a way that would make the reactions they have to certain things work. It just doesn't work. This thing definitely needs time to breathe. And because it doesn't have time to breathe, it's a pile of shit. So I gave that 2 stars and moved on right away. It was not that interesting. I'm sorry. I made an executive decision to DNF Light from Uncommon Stars by Ryka Aoki because it's such a nothing burger. It is such a nothing burger. The part that is interesting about the story would be the storyline between the violin teacher and her new student. Like, those two are interesting. Like, she has the teacher has a deal with hell, or with a demon from hell, to deliver 7 souls, and she picks these violin students and she trains them and she makes deals with them, and then years down the line, after they finish their training, they die under mysterious circumstances and their soul is dragged to hell. And we follow the lady who we follow the violin teacher and we follow her 7th student. That would be a very interesting story. But for some unknown reason, we also have to slap in the internalized misogyny storyline of a violin repair lady. And even worse, the violin teacher is kind of dating a lady from outer space and her family who is now running a donut shop. That story about the people from outer space is just, why is it there? Why the fuck is it there? Why the fuck is the repair shop lady there? They serve literally no purpose other than being there. Given that the book is only 350 something pages long, I can't help but feel that they are senseless filler to get to a certain page count. And I know speculative fiction does weird things, but usually speculative fiction does weird things in a way that is connected to each other. And at 63% in, I just can't see the connections in there. And literally nothing in there is interesting. Nothing is capturing me. Nothing. Absolutely nothing is speaking to me. So yeah, no, I'm DNFing that. Paula actually, one sprints gave me permission to do that. Because my brain was like, you're 63% in and nothing is bad about this book. So why not push through? That was what my brain was thinking, but I'm like, why waste my time with this when there's nothing good about it either, you know? So I'm DNFing Light from Uncommon Stars, because what the fuck. I finished another read for this beautiful, beautiful readathon. Compound Fracture by Andrew Joseph White. This one is for the trans mask representation. And I should know what I am getting myself into when I'm picking up Andrew Joseph White. I read Hell Followed With Us. I know that these books are technically YA, but that they are on the brutal end of the spectrum of YA novels. Yeah. I distinctly remember picking up this book, and then you have like a little like info thing to set the mood, I guess. And then it's like the first paragraph ends with the line, "They killed him by hammering a railroad spike through his mouth." That's the whole vibe of this book. It's very raw, it's very brutal. It is very much an Andrew Joseph White book. I enjoyed this a lot. I gave this 4 stars. In this, we follow Miles, who is a trans guy who is... At the beginning of the book, he comes out to his parents, and then throughout the book, things happen. And Miles lives in a small town where everyone knows everyone, and there is this family feud going on between his family and the family of the sheriff. And this family feud kind of explodes twice. The first time it explodes is like in the past. There was an accident that impacted Miles's family and 2 other families, and the second time it explodes, that's the plot of the book, that it explodes again when the sheriff's son attacks Miles. And we go from there, and it is very much small town blood feuds in the back end of the Appalachian Mountains. Now, If you expect some Appalachian eldritch horror in here, no. This is very much a thriller. We are very much focusing on this blood feud between these two families and the characters surrounding these two families. There is not a lot of horror going on. I have seen this being advertised as a thriller / horror. There is no horror in this. The only horror that is in here is the fact that humans are awful. Capitalism is the horror element in here. But it's very much a thriller and the stakes are very much there. And I like the fact that Miles, even though all this brutality is going on, and even though Miles is used to this kind of brutality, Miles is still struggling. He's 16, going on 17. He is very much in this space. I am a child, please help me. But also, I have to take care of my family. I have to do this myself. And that is very much at the core of his own struggles, and that is represented so beautifully. This weird limbo between being a child and being a grown-up. Very, very beautifully done. Yeah, good job, but like, it's very brutal. I would not give this to just any YA reader at the... it's very brutal. Also, you don't need to be scared that the dog lives. The dog is unharmed throughout the whole book. And we love Lady. Lady is amazing. Lady is the bestest girl, okay? But yeah, 4 stars, amazing read. Can only recommend if you are into this specific brand of brutality. So after I DNF'd a, what was it, Light from Uncommon Stars, I went looking for another audiobook that I could listen to while on walkies for specifically the trans femme representation for the Trans Res Readathon, and I stumbled upon the cute fact that A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers has apparently a trans female character. It's trans female. They are gender fluid in the most precise way possible. They do every month or so just change their gender. It's a whole alien thing. They do that apparently, and I also love that character. Tak is amazing. I love Tak. Zir is amazing. We love Tak in this household. We stand Tak, and we also have Pepper, who is technically intersex, I believe, because she only has 1 X chromosome, because the people who made her were like, yeah, we don't need you to be reproducing, so just 1 X chromosome is doing the trick. So there's a lot of weird representation in A Closed and Common Orbit. And in the Wayfarers in general, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful universe. So yeah, I read A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers, and I gave it 4 stars because I love the Wayfarers universe. It's just so nice. It's so nice. It's one of those books. There's not a lot going on. To be fair, in A Closed and Common Orbit, there is more going on than there was going on in The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. It's just vibes with these books, and it's great vibes, and it's interstellar vibes, and I just love it. I just love it. I love Tak, as I said before. I love Pepper. I love Blue. I love Sidra. I love all of these characters with my whole heart. Owl? Oh my god, Owl? Yes. If you need a feel-good read that is just vibes, go for the Becky Chambers Wayfarers universe because, oh my god, it's so good. Gave it 4 stars. No notes. Yes. This is most certainly an angle. I finished 2 more books for this here readathon wrap-up, and this will also be the wrap-up of the wrap-up. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. First, I finished Genderqueer by, I already forgot the author's name. Shame on me. It's a memoir. I'm learning that reviewing memoirs is kind of hard to do. I wouldn't say there is a lot of plot going on because it's someone else's life. The art style was amazing. I like the art style. It was very cutesy and everything, and I like the fact that we didn't shy away from taboo topics. Like, there is talk about menstruation, about masturbation, like about all the things no one talks about because you are not supposed to talk about it, that stuff. And we didn't shy away from that. Not in text and not in the visuals. Like, there are visual depictions of these things. Non-graphic, but at the same time kind of graphic. I don't know how to explain that. We follow a person's life and the moments where said person realized, okay, gender is shit, and sexuality is also shit, and okay, what labels are we going to use, and where do we fit in the whole complex thing that is called society, because apparently we have to live in one. That was very interesting to see the process of another person going through. And technically we could also say it's multiple people going through this, because there are, like, don't want to call them side characters because again we're talking real people here, but there are more people throughout this memoir that are dealing with similar questions, not the same questions, but similar questions. So that was interesting to see, I guess. What else? It kind of ends without any kind of resolution, which, I mean, yeah, the author is still alive. Would be weird otherwise, right? Yeah, it's a memoir. I definitely think this book should be in school libraries specifically for teenagers. This is exactly the questions teenagers ask themselves, and I get why so many conservative people want this book to be banned, because it's asking all the questions conservatives don't want you to ask yourself or others. It shows things that conservatives don't want you to talk about. So I get why they want it banned. Should it be banned? No. This book it's important shit in there. Show it to people. Show it to teenagers. Let people figure out that they are not alone in certain thinking patterns and shit. Hello? So yeah, I like that one, even though I don't like reading memoirs, which is something I'm learning right now, so cool. And the other thing I finished was The Bone Witch by Chupeco, and oh my god, was I bored out of my mind. This is one of those books that I finished because I didn't know what else to pick up, and I have a 700-day plus reading streak on Storygraph that I was not willing to give up on. So I kept reading it, and then I finished it, and nothing happened. Even though the plot, like, the promise of the premise sounds so interesting. We follow this girl, Tia, and she accidentally raises her brother from the dead, outing herself to herself and the world as a bone witch, which is like the strongest kind of magic user you have, and the most important magic user you have, but also the most despised ones, because they make dead people not dead. So she's then picked up by another more experienced bone witch, and she is brought over to the capital city, where she is not put into a magic people school, but in, like, the training grounds for becoming a geisha? Question mark? I did not understand why we have our magic users learn how to dance and how to serve tea and how to carry a conversation. Like that was a disconnect I didn't get. And we follow Tia through her having to do chores. Like she doesn't even train to become this conversation leading tea serving dancer in the beginning. She's just doing chores, like Spirited Away, when Chihiro has to just clean shit. That's like the first 30 to 40% of the book, and then she gets tricked into attending one of those tea parties even though she's not allowed because she wasn't trained yet, and then she accidentally raises like a swarm of rats, and that is when people realize, oh, you're more powerful than we thought, we probably should speed up your training. And then she starts training in dancing and serving tea and carrying a conversation, and she gets pretty dresses and jewels and a horse that she has to raise from the dead. And it is so not interesting because the whole book is just following her learning to dance and getting pretty dresses made. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then in between chapters there are these snippets that are from the future where she is raising these demon things. They're called devas, and it's these monsters, and she's raising them, and she's telling her story, the story we experience in the chapters, to a bard. But that also doesn't have any purpose, kind of. It's just, these pieces are there to artificially inject intrigue into the story, but it fails miserably at it, because it's like constantly seeding, like, the person she loved died, but she loved two people. And you would think in the flashback parts in the actual chapters, we would have a romance story. We do not! We have a bunch of characters show up and they obviously have interest in her, and she has interest in them, but it's not a love story. It's just, oh my god, this guy is hot. It's just, this guy is hot and he happens to be a prince, and this guy doesn't like me even though he's hot, and then the guy who doesn't like her but is hot tells her, hey, I think you're hot. It's like, the worst. It is so not interesting. It's so not interesting. And then the character motivation that we are getting by the end, like what she is doing in the start, like in the parts where we are talking with the bard, that shit is actually interesting because she sounds like a deranged person raising these demons and threatening whole nations with them. That sounds interesting. And by the end of book 1, we are supposed to get the motivation for that. And the motivation is just, my discount mom is dying and no one likes her, and they want me to die in the same way, and no one likes me, so I will make them like me, or make us not die for them. And that is the best way I can explain that. But it is delivered in such a boring way. It's not as bad as the motivation for the villain and assistant to the villain, but they are cousins. Basically, like, these motivations are cousins, and they are just not motivations, man. I did not like that. And now I'm scared because Silver and the Nightfall by Chupeco is one of the books I'm actually kind of excited to get to. But now I read that and I'm like, am I still excited for Silver and the Nightfall? You know? So I ended the trans rights readathon kind of on a low note, sadly. But I read a bunch of books. I read a bunch of really good books. I read some books, but yeah, I read like, what, 7, 8 books? I don't quite remember, and I don't have the stats open right now. But I read a bunch of books, and I had fun for the most part. Let me know what you read for the Trans Rights Readathon, I guess. If you found any new fun things, if you read any of the things I read, and what you're thinking about it. And yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next video. Bye.